Hiya Tim. So we're going to begin looking at A Christmas Carol and we're going to start looking at the characterisation of Scrooge. So I'd like you to begin reading pages 1 to 10 of A Christmas Carol. Whilst you're going through, begin making a glossary of any words you're not sure on, you don't understand. Don't worry about every single word because there's going to be a lot. Maybe pick about 10 words to do this. If you'd rather listen to the story, I've added a link in the description of the video. If you click on that, you can hear the story instead of reading it, but make sure you're following along so you get to the end of page 10 and so that you can see the language. Pause the video to complete this task. Okay, it's really useful you understand what you have read, so I'd like you to do a plot check. I want you to answer these 8 questions in full sentences so you're able to revise from this from a later date. Use your knowledge of the story that you've just read or listened to. You might also want to use the film that you watched in class. Pause the video to complete this task. I am giving you a bit of additional help on the answers here because I really want to make sure you've understood what you've read. So go through these answers, make sure you've got the right thing down. If you haven't, don't just cross it, actually write down the correct answer. So again, so you can use it for revision, and watch your spelling as well. Make sure you're spelling Scrooge correctly because you're going to be using this a lot. Okay, so first impressions of Ebenezer Scrooge. I'd like you to write out this quotation about Ebenezer Scrooge in the middle of your page because we're going to explode the quotation. I've also given you a glossary to help you out with some of the words. So in the middle of your page, you need to write down, oh, but he was a tight-fisted hand at the grindstone, Scrooge, a squeezing, wrenching, grasping, scraping, clutching, covetous old sinner. Okay, now I'd like you to explode this quotation. You've done this before, so you're following the same pattern. Go via the numbers to start with number 1, 2, 3, 4. You're also, all of this information will help you form a what, how, why paragraph. I'm not going to ask you to write a what, how, why paragraph, so make sure you're doing this in detail. Use some of your previous knowledge. Things like the exclamation mark is going to show you it's an exclamatory statement. And thinking about the adjectives used here. So pause the video to complete this task. Okay, we're going to have a look at more of the description of him now. So you've looked at one area. I'd like you now to read this description of Scrooge again and highlight or underline in pencil any words or phrases that reveal his character. So the rest of the quotation is hard and sharp as flint, from which no steel had ever struck out generous fire, secret and self-contained and solitary as an oyster. The cold within him froze his old features, nipped his pointed nose, shrivelled his cheek, stiffened his gait, made his eyes red, his thin lips blue, and spoke out shrewdly in his grating voice. Pause the video to complete this task. Okay, now I'd like you to write down 5 adjectives that describe Scrooge. So we're looking at your first impressions here. You were fantastic doing this with Inspector Calls. So now you're telling me 5 adjectives that you think describe Scrooge. Pause this video to complete this task. I'm just giving you a little bit more help here. Some words you might not have come across before and some quotations that it sort of links with. So we've got miserly. This means that he's tight. So he is selfish with his money. And the other one I think you might not understand is cynical. So this is an idea of thinking that all people are essentially selfish. So pause this video and add any of these to your adjectives if you'd like to. Okay, so now we're going to look at a particular simile. So we're going to look at hard and sharp as flint. So on your page, you want to write hard and sharp as flint in the middle and then you're doing a smaller version of the exploder quotation. I started it off for you with grey and old, and then you've got some arrows off that give you a starter. Your challenge task is to see if you can come with any additional interpretations or connotations of any of the words. So pause the video to complete this task. Okay, I'm going to go through some of these ideas with you. So the fact that the flint is grey and old shows that Scrooge is grey and old. We've also got the fact that flint is sharp and it can cut, and Scrooge is quite sharp and his words are quite cutting and damaging. The flint is hard and rough, and we get the impression that Scrooge's exterior is hard and rough. He's not soft and kind to people. It's a type of quartz, which is a type of rock, so it's hard. It's very tough. This is flint. And we've also got what it was used for. So flint was actually used for lighting fires. So you'd get steel and scrape it along the flint and it would make sparks. It was also used for making weapons, so it was tied to the end of sticks to make spears in hunting. So it's quite dangerous. But you've also got this idea of, if it's creating fire, maybe there is warmth within, maybe there is hope for Scrooge. So pause the video and add these ideas if you need to. Okay, putting this all together in a model paragraph and model answer. So we're using our same format of what, how, why, and all I've done is answer some of those questions over on the left-hand side. So I'm looking at Scrooge being a miser, so he is tight. I've talked about sinfully because, don't forget, religion is quite important within this story, within the novella. And then I explore everything we looked at on the other page. I'm just putting it into full sentences, and I'm using subject terminology like adjective. When I get to the blue box, I'm exploring the effect on the reader, because it is a novella, so not audience like the play and its spectacles. So when we look at the readers, you want to split your reader. So here I've looked at a poor reader, and I've mentioned the upper class reader as well. I've also put next to poor reader or listener, because many of the poorer readers, or many of the poorer people within society, couldn't actually read. So Dickens used to read his staves to a hall full of people. So some people heard the story. I'd like you to copy out this response and label it model answer, so you've got this to refer back to in the future. Now I'd like you to look at the simile, solitary as an oyster. So you've got the image in the middle and you've got some arrows coming off it. Challenge task, can you come up with any more interpretations or connotations? You might want to, whilst you've paused the video, Google what an oyster is. That's absolutely fine. So pause the video and complete this task. Again, I'm giving you a bit of help here because you're going to use this to write a paragraph. So some of the ideas about an oyster, it's got a hard shell, showing that Scrooge has got a hard shell, a hard exterior. It doesn't have anything to do with anybody else. And this is like Scrooge again. He doesn't like to be around people. It's found in the seabed, so it's found in the dark, in the depths of the water, so somewhere that's maybe cold and dark. And that shows you about Scrooge as well, particularly how he lives. Positives about the oyster, though, oysters can be worth a lot of money and they're considered a delicacy. So you eat an oyster and it tends to be, richer people tend to buy oysters. So it's considered delicacy and they can be worth a lot of money. So within the oyster, you could find a pearl, and pearls are maybe put on a necklace and worn by rich women back in Victorian times. So there is an idea that within the hard shell there is something wonderful inside, and you could relate that back to Scrooge. So pause the video and see if you want to get down any of these ideas. Okay, so your main task now, I'd like you to, in your exercise books, write a paragraph that explores the quotation, solitary as an oyster. So you're doing a what, how, why paragraph. You've got the questions there to prompt you, but I've also given you some sentence starters because I know you like some sentence starters. Again, you don't have to use all of them. Pick out the ones you want to use. You're doing really well with this, so I'm excited to see what you come up with. Pause the video to complete this task. Finally, please send me your responses. Don't forget to take a clear photograph of your home learning and attach this to class charts so that I'm able to give you feedback. I particularly want a photograph of your final paragraph so that I can give you clear feedback on this. And your explode the quotation from earlier, because I didn't go through this, if you want to double check that with me, make sure I've got a clear photograph of that one as well. Good luck year 10, and I can't wait to see your responses.